Ever since the desert tortoise was declared a threatened species, the government has spent millions to protect the animal.
After poring through years of expenditure reports, we discovered the amount of taxpayer money spent is actually in the hundreds of millions.
Paul Johnsich uncovered the numbers.
Guys, there are people who think when you spend upwards of $200 million to fix a problem and it's still broken, well, that should be front page news. The desert tortoise population continues to decline, yet the money continues to flow. And we found evidence the government agency that's supposed to keep track of where all the money goes can't say what it was spent on and has been in no hurry to let decision makers know their efforts aren't working.
The desert tortoise was placed on the threatened list in 1990. To protect it, the federal government designated 6.4 million acres in Nevada, California, Arizona, and Utah as critical habitat. They restricted off-road vehicle use, prohibited cattle from grazing on public land, and built fences to stop turtles from getting run over on the highway. But in 2002, 12 years into the recovery effort, the federal government's General Accounting Office noticed something. That even though $100 million had been spent trying to save the tortoise, no one was bothering to check if what they were doing was working. Ever since they started counting tortoises, the results have been less than encouraging. In 2004, an estimated 359,000 tortoises roamed the desert. Now, they're thought to be around 261,000. That's 91,000 fewer tortoises, a 27% decline. That despite the fact an enormous amount has been spent to protect them. We examined years of expenditure statements filed by the Department of Fish and Wildlife. They show since 1990, federal, state, and local governments spent an astounding $227 million on the desert tortoise.
It's ridiculous. It's absolutely absurd.
And Clark County Commissioner Steve Sisolak isn't the only one who feels that way. Despite repeated requests to the Department of Fish and Wildlife, we never got a breakdown of what all that money paid for. We asked for an accounting of where the money went, and this is what we got back. Page after page of background information and confusing charts. What about the $227 million? Where did it go? Well, it turns out no one really knows. Thanks to an amendment written into the Endangered Species Act, if the numbers become, quote, unduly burdensome for government agencies, they are only required to make a good faith effort to collect data.
When you're dealing with, $200 million, should there be a stronger effort?
Sure, there should be a stronger effort, but unfortunately, if there was a stronger effort, it would cost you another $10 million to determine where they spent the $200 million.
Not only is accounting of the millions being spent incomplete, it's also slow in coming. The most recent expenditure report on the desert tortoise is from 2012, which means millions of dollars spent this year and last are to this point unaccounted for.
It was death by 1,000 cuts.
Putting aside issues of money and lax government accounting, environmentalists insist the tortoise is the desert's canary in a coal mine, and saving it remains a worthy cause.
If this species, which has existed for millions of years and is uniquely adapted to the Mojave Desert environment, and also is key to the survival of many other species that rely on it, if that species is in trouble, then we're doing something wrong. Something is seriously wrong.
But for a growing number of Nevada politicians, the money issue is impossible to ignore.
You're talking millions of dollars being spent that could be better spent on another source. I mean, our children are endangered, our seniors are endangered, but they're not put on the list. We put tortoises on the list. It's crazy.
There are 1,535 species on the endangered or threatened list. The desert tortoise is the only one that you're allowed to keep as a pet, and many people do. Right now, there are thought to be between 50 and 100,000 living in people's backyards.
Thanks, Paul.
Interesting numbers, yeah.